Good morning, everybody. Could you please grab your 6.1 homework? There's one problem that I wanted to go over with you because it seemed like a lot of people had questions about this one yesterday in class. So look at number 13 on the 6.1 homework. We're going to take each set of parentheses separately. So the first one says 25a squared b, and that whole thing is to the third power. So really what that means is I have to do 25a squared b times itself 3 times. So 1, 2, and then one more time. Then what we can do is take 25 times 25 times 25, and you'll get 15,625. If we write out all the a's, right here we have two a's, so a squared, a times a. Here we have a times a. Here we have a times a. So in total, we have a to the 6th power. If you look at the b's, this is b to the 1st, so there's 1, here's 2, here's 3. So for that part, we're going to get b to the 3rd power. Now remember, we also have to take care of that second set of parentheses. So now, and I kind of ran out of room up here, but I'll do it up top. So we have 1/5 a, b, c, and that's squared. So that means I have to take that and multiply it by itself twice. So when you multiply fractions, 1/5, we take the top number 1 times 1, and we'll get 1. Take the bottom number 5 times 5, and we get 25. And then if we look at the variables, I have 1a here and 1a here. When I multiply, that's going to be a squared. And the same thing with the b's. We have a b and a b, which means b squared, and the c's. So now I have to take that and multiply it by what we got from that first set of parentheses. Now you have to multiply these two together. So you can think about this 15,625 over 1. So really 15,625 times this 1, and then 1 times 25. And really what you're going to get is 15,625 divided by 25, which is how you get back to that 625. And then if we look at the a's, right here we have a to the 6th, right here we have a squared. So here's 6 a's, 2 a's, that's going to be a to the 8th. And then for the b's, we have b cubed times b squared, so in total that's 5 b's. And remember, you can, if you're stuck, you can write these all out. So b cubed is b times b times b, b squared is just b times b. When I count these up, I have b to the 5th total. And then there are no other c's, so here's your final answer. If you have any other questions on the homework, we can talk about those tomorrow. Right now, will you please grab your notes and flip to the 6.2 notes. (6.2), we're going to talk about dividing monomials. Yesterday we talked about multiplying, so today we're focused on dividing. So you guys have a few things to fill in. When we talk about the coefficients, remember those are the big numbers out front. Either divide them, or if you have a smaller number on top and the bigger number on the bottom, you're just going to reduce, just like you would reduce a fraction. When we divide, if we have the same variable on the top and the bottom, we can cross them off. So if we end up with x over x, x divided by itself is 1. So we don't have to worry about that. And that's how we're going to simplify these things. So check out your first example. 4x to the 5th divided by 2x cubed. Our first job is going to be to write this out. So 4x to the 5th is really the same thing as 4 times x 5 times here. On the bottom, 2x cubed. That x cubed I can rewrite as x times x times x. And then we just said when you have the same number on the top and the bottom, we can cross it off. So right here we have an x on top, x on the bottom. When you divide those, you're going to get 1. So those guys cancel each other out. Here's another x over x that cancels out. So we can actually cross off 3 x's from the top and 3 x's from the bottom. And now let's finish here. So the big numbers, we have 4 divided by 2, which is 2. On the top, you're left with x times x, which is x squared. And we didn't have anything left on the bottom. So that's your final answer. Example 2 is the same idea. So we're going to start by writing out what we have. So on top, 10a cubed I can write as 10 times a times a times a. On the bottom, we can rewrite 5a as just 5 times a. And then anything you have on the top and the bottom, we can cancel. So I see 1a that's on the top and the bottom. A divided by a is 1. So those will cancel out. Now we can look at the big numbers. You have 10 divided by 5. That's just 2. And then we have a times a left, so we'll get 2a squared. We didn't have anything left on the bottom, so we don't need that fraction bar anymore. If you look at example 3, why don't you take a few seconds here and write this out. Here's what it should look like. So let's go through and cross off what we have on the top and the bottom. We see an x. There's 3 x's on the top, so that means we can cross off 3 x's on the bottom. Now this time when you take care of the coefficients, you got to be careful. The smaller numbers on top, the bigger numbers on the bottom. So think about this as a fraction that we're going to reduce. I know that 4 divides into both numbers. So 4 divided by 4 is 1 on top. 8 divided by 4, we'll get 2 on the bottom. So 4 over 8 is the same thing as 1/2. And then let's look at what we have left for x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on the bottom we're going to have x to the 5th power. So that's one thing to be careful of, those big numbers. Make sure you pay attention if it's going to end up to be a fraction. If it had been 8 on the top and 4 on the bottom, that's when you would just get 2. You wouldn't get the fraction. Alright, pause the video right here and I'll let you guys try this one on your own, and I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, hopefully you've had a chance to try this. Here's what it should look like. Three with b times itself 6 times on the bottom. You have a lot to write out, or on the top. You have a lot to write out on the bottom. And then when we go through and cross these off, we end up with 3 b's left on the bottom. So on the bottom we're going to have b cubed. Whoops. And then when you look at these numbers, I notice that the smaller number's on top, so that means I'm going to end up with a fraction. So 3 and 12, I know 3 divides into both. So 3 divided by 3 is 1 on top. 12 divided by 3, we'll get 4 on the bottom. Alright, example 5. Pause right here, take a minute and write this out. Here's what it should look like when you write it out. We're going to do the same thing. Every time you have the same number on top and bottom, we can cross it off. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7 divided by 7 is 1. So we can rewrite this as we have 7 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 to the 6th power is how you can rewrite that. Notice that the base did not change. We still have 7 as the base. Or if you have a calculator and you want to figure it out, you could get 117,649. Please try example 6. Same idea as the last one. Pause the video right here. So this one is the same idea as the last one, except we happen to have more 2's on the bottom. So when I go through and cross off, so now we have no numbers left on the top, so really just think of that as 1. And on the bottom, we have 2 times 2, so really we end up with 1/4. Now, when you get to something like example 7, we're going to use the same strategies, we just happen to have more variables and we have bigger numbers. But we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to start by writing out everything I have on top. So 144, a squared is a times a, b to the 5th, and then a c, and on the bottom do the exact same thing. And then from here we're going to use the same strategies. Whatever you have on the top and bottom, we can cross off. So I see an a on top and an a on the bottom. If I divide those, that's 1. Here's another a over a, so I can cross those off. I see 1b that I can cross off. And I see 1c that I can cross off. So now we look at what we have left. On top, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 b's that we didn't cross off. So that means we have b to the 4th. On the bottom, I see 1a. We don't have any b's left because we crossed off the only one that was there. And I see c times c, so we have c squared. And then we just got to take care of the coefficients right here. These you can just divide in your calculator. 144 divided by 12, you're going to get 12. And that goes on the top. Think of it as 12 over 1 if you'd like to, but that's why the 12 goes on top. I'd like you guys to pause the video right here, take a minute, and try this one on your own. Check what you got when you wrote it out with what's up here. And then we're going to go through and simplify what we can. So I'm going to go through and cross off everything we have on the top and the bottom. So now, on the top, I see 1x left. On the bottom, I see y times y, which is y squared. And I see 1z left. And then if we look at the coefficients, we have negative 45 divided by positive 15. That divides evenly, and we'll get negative 3. And the negative 3 is going to go on top. Alright, before we do example 9, I just want to show you this really quick. So this is not in your notes. Let's say we have a rectangle. I know one side of the rectangle has a length of 3, and I know the total area of the rectangle is 12. You guys probably remember area of a square or a rectangle is the same thing as length times width. So really, if I know the area is 12, I can put that right here for A. I know the length is 3, and I don't know the width. So if I want to find the width, that means I need to get W by itself. So really I end up dividing both sides by 3, and I'll get the width of the rectangle is 4. We're going to do the same idea on the next slide, but it looks a little bit more complicated. So this time we have one side of a rectangle is 8x squared. So now we have a monomial in here. And this time I know that the total area is 24x to the fourth y. We're going to use the same strategy though. I know area is the same thing as length times width. I know the area is 24x to the fourth y. And I know that equals 8x squared times w. If I want to solve for w, that means I need to divide both sides by 8x squared. Alright, pause right here, finish that division, and I'll show you the answer in just a second. Here's what it should look like. Cross off what I see on the top and the bottom. I have an x times x, which is x squared, and a y, and then 24 divided by 8 is 3. So now I know one side of the triangle was 8, or one side of the rectangle was 8x squared. Now I know the length of the other side was 3x squared y. Alright. Are you a master problems? Please try these. I'll put up answers in a few minutes, and then you can get going on your homework. Thanks. See you tomorrow.